Guten Abend. Maybe we could have got a smaller venue. So my name's Chris Brown. I'm from Human Security. I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about bots and how they can affect online advertising and purchases you're making online. So I may not be the Chris Brown that you were expecting, but I am a Chris Brown. But similarly, when you see traffic arriving at your website, it may not be the traffic that you're expecting. Okay, a lot of bots masquerading as humans. Okay, very difficult to spot. Back in some of my history, 15 plus years ago, I was dealing with bots. I actually wrote a white paper on some work I did at a national level, blocking bots that were impacting a country, an entire country, around ATM machines and networks and so on. Back then, bots were fairly easy to spot. They were kind of very noisy, not sophisticated, and causing havoc, basically. If you think back to the days of DDoS attacks and so on, it was just kind of a blunt force tool used to swamp networks. But they've changed significantly since then, and there's still a very real problem today, probably even more so. So what is the Grinch doing this season? Can anybody say who this lady is? Not this one here, that's my wife Becky. This one over here. Adele, yeah. Anybody maybe get the connection between Adele and bots? Well, we had to pay a fortune for the tickets because the bots had bought them all. So it's a real problem with anything that's online, with sort of a high value item or a high demand item. And Adele's just released some new dates for a new concert, and tickets are 4 times face value because they've all been bought up by bots and then they get sold on the resale market. But the same goes for sneakers, electrical goods, Xboxes, the latest PlayStations, and so on. She was pretty good, and well worth the money. And that's inventory fraud. So that's bots going online, buying those items up and then reselling them over face value. And it's a real problem, okay, for retailers. And it's a real problem for consumers, okay? So it gives you less confidence in the market if you think you're having to pay over the odds for tickets or for items that you really want. Even worse if you've got kids and they want the latest PlayStation or game, and then you disappoint them at Christmas. And payment fraud is going up. So, along with the bots comes payment fraud. And we've seen this particularly with buying of items, that once we decrease the fraud or the bots of buying up that inventory, payment fraud also drops. So the bots are using fraudulent credit cards or stolen credit card details to actually purchase those items in the first place. So if you can wipe out the bots, you can then have an impact and wipe out some of the fraud as well. And then account fraud. So previous company I worked for used to scan the dark web looking for items that belong to companies or pertinent information about companies, and the sheer volumes of credentials that are available online on the dark web or other places, into the billions. So fraudsters will download those lists and then use them to try and take over accounts or create new accounts using those stolen credentials. And if that doesn't work, they then try and brute force their way in. So they just make up a username and password pair and just keep going until they can actually gain access to a site. Sorry, this thing was buzzing. Is that for a reason? Doesn't matter. Okay. No, it's okay. This is just making a noise. And then we have marketing fraud. So another big issue is that the bots will actually skew your marketing funnel by clicking on adverts and inventory and so on, filling out web forms, and then you're doubling down and chasing those statistics when actually they're false. And then retargeting fraud. So filling up your CRM or your sales funnel with fake leads, and then you're doubling down, retargeting them, following those bots around the internet, re-advertising to them when actually there's no chance of a sale at the end of that. So it's just costing you more and more money. And we've all seen it. Go on social media now, they're all linked. You see one advert, you then start to see the same advert all around the internet. Well, if it's a bot that's clicked on that advert in the first place, then you're just wasting your valuable marketing spend. And then compliance. So you imagine if these bots are filling out all your web forms on your site and opting into communications, that causes an issue. You're sending out emails to these people. Worse still, if they've used stolen credentials to do that. And you've all seen it probably where you receive unsolicited marketing emails, and you think, how did I end up on this marketing list? I've never been on that website. It's not something I'm interested in. It's probably because stolen credentials have been used to fill out that web form in the first place. So some research that we recently conducted looked across 1,000 consumers, primarily in the US, over 18, typical kind of consumer market. I think the battery might be going in this, but you carry on. I think the battery's going in this because it keeps buzzing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll try it on there. So, unsurprisingly, most consumers are planning to do their shopping online during what's called Black Friday sales events. We're all doing shopping online now, even more so because of COVID. And then they're looking to buy high-value items such as electronics, experiences, and collectibles, all of which attract the bots as well. So the more people want to buy these things, the more attractive they are to the bots to try and corner that market and hold that inventory. 2/3 of consumers shared concerns about grabbing of all those holiday gifts before they could buy them. Personally, if I couldn't buy something online, it wouldn't really bother me too much. But I suppose if you've got family that you promised gifts to, or children that you've promised gifts to for Christmas or the holiday season, that could really be a concern for you. Now, this definitely does impact me. So 51% of those surveyed said they would shop at a different retailer if they thought the bots were interfering with their holiday season shopping. I'm one of these people that go on a website. If I can't immediately get to where I want to be or find something or fill the shopping cart easily, I'll just move on and buy it from somewhere else. So similarly, if bots are impacting the performance of a website or stealing all of that inventory or even just holding that inventory, then you're going to look elsewhere. A big area you see this as well is in flights, flight booking areas or hotel booking, where competitors will just hold inventory and just continually scrape the website, filling a basket and then not checking out. It's a real problem. So how do we fight back against these bots? I'm going to go for a case study. This was for a large marketplace retail company, part of the gig economy. And you can probably work out from these sorts of numbers, the sort of scale of this, where we were seeing as much as 70% bot traffic. And that has a real cost on their compute power. And just a 1% drop in that bot traffic resulted in a $250,000 saving in compute. So a huge problem for them. Costing them in the tens of millions of dollars. So anything they can do to reduce that bot traffic was a big help. And of course also improved the user experience and then also made the inventory available so you could actually sell more. So a win-win on all counts. And we do this using our human verification engine. So we're protecting applications, APIs, digital media from bots, but also improving the experience for real humans. And that's a big thing. So you've all been to websites where you get issued a challenge or a puzzle to solve, click on all the palm trees, click on all the traffic lights, and invariably, they don't always work and you fail and you're like, how can that possibly be? You have to redo it again. So if you could remove that challenge for customers and make it very easy for them and yet still verify and protect that the traffic is real and human, that all helps. The scale advantage. So I'm sure you recognize some of the logos on this board, on this presentation. These are the companies we work with, and in doing that, we see huge volumes of traffic and a huge portion of the internet when it comes to programmatic advertising. So you're benefiting from what we see at this level. We could then pass that benefit on to all of our customers. And just to give you an idea of that scale, 80% of the traffic we see, we've already observed somewhere else. So if you have a visitor to your website, it may be the first time you've seen them in 6 months, or it could be the first time you've ever seen them. But in 80% of the cases, we've already seen that traffic. 12 billion fraudulent events we've observed from a bot in a single day. It shows you the sort of scale of the problem. And we see 12 trillion calls to our API every week. So massive volume of traffic. This is a really interesting slide, actually. This was from a POV I did with a client in the Middle East. They're an online travel booking company. And on the left, you can see what we'd expect to see of normal human behavior of somebody traversing a website. You kind of land on the landing page, you then click around a few links, and you eventually make your way through a normal process to get to a checkout and buy your goods. And on the right-hand side, as you look at it, on the right-hand side, this was the model of what we saw from the bot traffic. So interestingly, first of all, was the website was behind an application level firewall, which had full bot protection turned on. And yet when we deployed our technology behind the firewall, we saw that 33% of their traffic was a sophisticated bot. And it was going straight through all the file protection they had in place, straight through their website using a very predetermined path and going straight into people's accounts and stealing data. So the attackers had basically found a vulnerability in their website, and were using that vulnerability to traverse straight into people's accounts and then steal information. But how that traversed and the speed which they were traversing the website was quite interesting. So how does the human verification work? Basically, we've got superior detection techniques, looking at signal that we collect from those devices, the network effect from the 12 trillion events that we see every week, and then hacker intelligence and takedowns. So we have a very sophisticated research team that's continuously looking into methods of attack and researching threat actors and groups to understand how they're conducting attacks, and then feeding that back into our verification engine. I'm going to go into a bit more detail on these in a moment. So technical evidence, this is how we actually gather the information in the first place. We look for around 2,500 different inputs of signal during a session. So we're basically querying that end device in the browser and saying, okay, it's claiming to be Safari 12.0. It's claiming to be on an iOS device running iOS 13. But actually, the IP address is located on a server in a data center, and the device appears to be running Linux. So it's a mismatch there. We look at the way the cursor is moving within the page. We look at the rate of clicks, the speed of clicks, whether the geolocation is actually, the device is moving, and so on. And we put all of that together to determine whether it's real or not. Slight typo there, I didn't update this slide with the 12 trillion, which I do like to mention. And then that feeds into our algorithms. We've got about 350 algorithms that we then feed that through that determine whether it's a bot or not. And this is all based on around 10 years of evidence that we've collected. We've been around a long time. We were formerly known as White Ops, which is probably a more familiar name in the industry, before we changed our name earlier this year to Human. And we've got all of these modeling analytics, which then gives us a decision, human or bot, and then passes that on to your infrastructure. And then we've got this machine learning. What do we see there? So we have this massive data set that we've generated over time that we can query across compared to the reputation of what we've seen previously. We look at the 12 trillion interactions that we observe weekly, the types of browsers that we see, the types of devices that we see. And we see billions of mobile devices on a weekly basis as well. So we're able to sort of confirm what we know to be good and what we know to be bad. And then based on reputation algorithms and the IP classification models and so on, we pass that through. And we can give a response within under 10 milliseconds with a prediction of whether that's a bot or not. So you can do pre-bid, and then we follow that up with a more lengthy interrogation post-bid to feed back into our decisioning engine whether it was real or not, so whether we've made the correct prediction. And then I mentioned our threat intelligence. So our Satori threat intelligence team, they're very well regarded within the industry. They've come from the typical sort of agency background, as well as enterprise background and academia, working for the largest companies. And we've been very, very successful in covering some very large operations. I'm going to go into some of those in a moment. They work very closely with some of those agencies as well to help with takedowns and so on. And we've got a lot of language support for them doing the research. And then we have this continuous adaption. So like I said, we're doing this pre-bid, looking at traffic and deciding whether it's malicious or not, and then serving into our JavaScript, querying longer term, looking at the device itself, and then feeding that back into the decision engine. And then the team are continuously doing research to also update our engines and machine learning to make sure it's relevant. And what does that look like in action? So there was a botnet that we took down a couple of years ago called Eve, or 3VE. 12 billion ad requests per day. You can imagine the scale of that and how much money was involved. 1.7 million affected or malware-infected devices, which were used to conduct this fraud. 60,000 sellers sold fake inventory through the botnet, and 10,000 spoof domains. And then all of these logos on here were the companies and agencies that we work with to take that botnet down very successfully. Which you often hear about these kind of takedowns and, oh, it went to court and so on. But actually, 2 weeks ago, the lead perpetrator of this got sentenced to 10 years in prison, fined $7 million, based on that takedown that we did. So we kicked that off, we worked with all the agencies, and this guy's now serving 10 years in prison for it, which is pretty cool. Well, not for him. And then some further reading, if you'd like to. It's Human That Count, Black Friday to be a Bot Friday, some white papers that we've written, and show me the dollars. So obviously it's a very big issue within the industry. Programmatic advertising is why we're all here, and Human can help determine whether it's humans or bots that are visiting your adverts and that you're serving them to. Thank you very much for your time.